Good day, everybody. This is John Scarborough. Kind of wanted to give a real life example of what my shop looks like inside and out from time to time. As you can see, stuff is scattered out. I mean, we got pallets leaning up over here. Four-wheeler just kind of parked in there. Of course, I just now pulled that in there. A couple of cords laying around. I've got corn over here for the, we're feeding our pigs right now until we come up with a good feeding system. For now, that's what we're feeding them because that's the cheapest system we can come up with, and we're mixing that with soybean. We're hoping to come up with something a little bit better, but for now, you know, obviously you can't let them starve while you're trying to figure that out. So that's what we're doing for now, and that may be how we stick to it. I don't know. But anyway, as you can see, I mean, we've got that there because we don't have anywhere to go with it right now. If you go out here, you see tin laying on the ground. A little gate laying over here on top of it. There's cardboard boxes laying right here. There's tin laying out everywhere. And a lot of times when I show my videos, even though sometimes I'll say that it's messy, it's never quite this messy. But I want people to realize that I go through phases where it will be this messy and then it'll all get cleaned back up, okay? So you see right here, I've got a trailer load of seed, okay? And then over there, of course, I've got all of that. Now that stays there until we get stuff where we want it. That all came from my other shop. And I've got to finish building shelves and finish organizing everything that I have until all of that can get picked up. Until then, we've got what looks like a mess, but an actually organized system, very spread out. That could be combined on shelves and everything else into a very tight system, and you wouldn't hardly see anything sitting there. But when it's not organized, if you can open it and spread it out a little bit, then you can still get to everything. And notice that I even put a little bit of separation between things. Like I've got separation kind of separating what stuff is and what stuff is not, just kind of separating it out. So when you've got no order, you still need some order, if that makes sense, okay? But anyway, this is just real life, what it looks like in here sometimes. Of course, I've got this, you know, I've shown this before, at least I think I have. That's my scrap wagon. But that is very nice for helping keep little scrap things organized and things like that, especially when you get real busy in your welding shop. But anyway, this is real life, okay? So I walk over here, I've got this fire pit. Of course, I've had this sitting here for quite some time. I started drawing on it. Y'all can kind of see that. Started drawing on that quite a while back ago and just haven't finished it. It's not for a customer, it was just one I was building to put up for sale, but just haven't got done with it yet. Haven't really decided what all I want to do on it, and just kind of, you know, so it's sitting to the side, you know. Sometimes you do have to kind of get inspired with things like that. So anyway, and then I've got, you know, junk bags laying over here. I've got pieces of rubber laying down, which is very, very handy, by the way, in a shop, is scrap pieces of rubber to help protect your floors and things like that. Piece of junk here that's got to get taken care of. Got my four-wheeler I'm working on right here, and wrenches laying around that's got to get put away. And I got this right here. This looks like a mess, and it looks like a mess in there. I got boards laying right here. You know, I mean, it just looks like a scattered out mess. I mean, when you look at this over here, got this tractor pulled in here, taking up a bunch of room. Okay, so why am I showing this video? Well, I wanted to show this video because I hear a lot of people talk about how, well, your shop's going to get filled up. You know, you got your shop, just bank on it, it's going to get filled up, and before you know it, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And so and then I hear another flip side of it is people say, well, your shop's got to stay completely spotless. It's got to stay immaculate. You know, that they just don't believe in having a shop that you don't keep clean. And the first thing you'll hear them say is, oh, you wouldn't even see me working in my shop until I get it cleaned up. So basically what I wanted to touch on with this video is a shop productive when it's dirty? Is it necessary to have that shop clean to still be productive? Well, first off, we'll just go right off by saying that really depends on how big your shop is and how messy it is. That's kind of stating the obvious. But now let's go into a little bit more depth in that. I would say that it's not necessarily It's not going to happen. In fact, I would say that if you try to keep your shop perfectly immaculate all the time, then you probably have a lot more time than most of us, and you're not really trying to make a living in your shop. Now, this is not the case for everybody. This is the case for most production shops. There are a few shops out there for different types of people that do things that their shops can stay absolutely immaculate all the time, and it's just because of what they do and who they are. So partly it depends on if you specialize with one thing. When you specialize with one thing, a lot of times it is more likely that you can actually keep your shop clean. But the more different types of things you do with your shop, so like for us, for example, we farm for a living, but then we also use this shop. We work, we do some work for other people here and there, fab work here and there. But then I also do fire pits in this shop. Also, because we farm for a living, we have a lot of different equipment, and it can be difficult to really make a living with a lot of equipment if you don't do some of your own work. I don't do all of my own mechanic work. I could literally do every last bit of it, but some stuff it doesn't make sense to do all of it myself. But that's a topic for another day, how to weigh all that stuff out. But so the point is that I do a lot of different things out of this shop, and partially it's a mess because we are still organizing and still building. And it takes a while, especially when you're building a place from the ground up while trying to run a business. My wife actually works a job too. And so we're trying to run a business. My wife works a job, and pretty much it's just me that does all this stuff by myself. And, trying to do all those things while running the cows and running over 100 acres, and taking care of all that, it can get a little bit conglomerated, can get a little bit hard to run. Okay, so the point is that we want to lean-to over there. So, and that's one reason why a lot of that tin is sitting around. We were doing some work with it. It's got to get all picked back up and moved over now. We're in transition mode with the garden. If anybody doesn't know, that we do some small production gardening, with garlic and things like that. So when you're in transition mode on that, it kind of takes some time, And one thing about farming is farming needs to happen now. And what that means is when it's the day for it to happen, it's the day. There's no real change in it, And then if weather hits, well, then all of a sudden you just can't do something, But if it's time to plant, it's time to plant. You don't have a whole lot of play in there. If I got to cut out a fire pit or something like that, I have a little bit of play in there. If I've got to build something for somebody, I've got a little bit of play there. Not a lot, but I got a little bit, So that's part of it is, it's time to plant seed. There's no play there. I have to do it now. It doesn't matter what else there is to do, okay? So that also means that stuff like this four-wheeler in the back, I need to work on it, but because it's not necessary, I don't need that four-wheeler, then that four-wheeler is pushed off to finish in come winter. Once we get to hay season and we're not working quite as hard, then that's when we'll work on that. Probably when it's cold outside, we'll come in here, turn a heater on, and work on that, So it's pushed off to the side, and it's going to sit right there until that happens, And that's one of the benefits of having a bigger shop is you can do that. Obviously, I would have that in my lean-to off to the side over there if I had it, okay? Also, I'd have my seed in my lean-to. I would probably have this trailer right here in the lean-to, and I would have that tractor right there in the lean-to. So the lean-to would clean it up quite a bit. I would have this tractor in the lean-to because that tractor, I have it parked in here because we had some rain. I don't have to park it out of the weather. I just prefer to park my tractors, especially my older tractors, out of the weather because sometimes I haven't had any issues out of it, but sometimes the wiring harness and stuff may not be quite as waterproof as it used to be. Different things may not be quite as tight as it used to be. Some of the rubbers for keeping water out of the gearbox may not be quite as tight. So I just try to keep it out of the weather when and if I can. So that's pulled in here, kind of taking up space. Why is this here right now? Why is it not on a pallet? Well, another problem happened. I'm driving home with all of this seed, had about 2,000 pounds of seed, and I had a drive shaft U-joint blow up on me. You know, it just kind of, it messed up underneath there on me. Well, obviously I can't drive home with it. So I had to get somebody to come out and help me and get my truck back home. Well, then obviously I had to take that truck. I didn't take the time and work on it myself, even though, yes, I could have. That was one of those things where, you know, have to kind of weigh out your options. Got a lot to do right now. It didn't make sense for me to do it myself. So I sent it to a very good mechanic that I know and trust. He's a good friend of mine. And he's going to work on that and get all that done for me. Well, so we had to unload all of this, put it in the trailer. So now it's kind of all spread out. We had to do it in the dark, you know, and everything. So now I've got to get through seeding season. We're seeding right now. We don't do this all the time. For anybody that knows, we are actually just kind of experimenting with some of this. But that is a video for a different day. We will show that later. But the point is that now this has to go somewhere. So now this is in here. And then, of course, as luck would have it, you know, bad things happen in 3. We had a flat on the tire. So now I've got to patch that tire. I'm right in the middle of seeding season. I come home, I get my truck parked where it needs to go. I mean, took to the mechanic where it needs to go. Then the flat, I see that the trailer's flat. Don't have time to look for the air thing on it because I've got rain in the next day. So then I had to start putting out seed. So things like that happen sometimes. So can you be productive in a messy shop? Well, that sometimes you can. Sometimes, in my experience, you have to be. It's not necessarily that it's fun. I remember when I first started, I was very, very OCD about keeping things immaculate, keeping things very, very clean. And this is before I had a shop, you know. But I would keep things so clean throughout the workday that a lot of times I would end up automatically putting up tools because I thought I was done with them, and then I would have to pull them all back out. So the real answer is sometimes a messy shop is actually more productive than a clean shop. And it just depends on what you're doing. So sometimes if you can get past the clutter and the messy shop, then sometimes it is more productive. And I guess the moral of the story is you do want a clean shop. And that's why a lot of times this is not normal for my shop. Now, it is more normal right now, maybe even in some of the videos I've done. But like if in my other shop across the road when I was in there, that was not normal for that shop at all. I mean, I kept my shop quite a bit cleaner, but I wasn't working on building a home. I was living in a house, already had a house. My shop was close to how I wanted it, you know, and we weren't even as busy in our business as we are now, you know. So it was a lot easier, you know. I did a job, worked on it, and then cleaned the shop up, you know. But now I've got a lot more going on, so I'm more productive, but because of that higher productivity, my shop stays messier. Also, I'll say this. I have worked in a couple of fab shops. A lot of people know that I used to weld. I used to travel for a living and weld. Well, sometimes when you travel and weld like that, you'll get in between jobs. So like you'll finish a job that you're on. You'll finish because you're a builder. You're not a maintenance man or anything like that. You are a builder as a traveling welder. So as a builder, obviously, jobs get done. You get finished building, and then you have to get to another building job. You have to go get another job because we were contractors, you know. So a lot of times you would line up jobs and stuff, but it may be 2 weeks, 3 weeks away before you go get to that job. Well, if you go, it's nice for vacation sometimes, but if you go and take that vacation all the time, then it's not the best. So I would go and work in fab shops between jobs. And there's even been up to 2 or 3 months at a time that I would go and work in different fab shops. The point in saying that is that I've had a little experience in fab shops as well. In fact, my first job on a drilling rig, in a drilling rig yard, was not a fab shop, but it was a fab shop setting, but done in a yard. And then we even did some of it in a fab shop. So what is the point in saying all this? That the point is that I've worked in multiple different shop settings, and I've gotten a chance to kind of see different. I had to take a sip of my coffee, guys. Different settings, okay? And I've seen very, very immaculate, clean shops with wonderful tools, all hung up exactly where they need to go. And then I've seen shops where everything has a place, but generally it's not in that place. Generally it's out being used. Or sometimes it would be on the floor because it was used that evening, and then they know that they're going to use it in a couple days from now in that area, you know. So shops that are not immaculate, and then sometimes I would just see shops that are complete no order at all, okay? Obviously the shops that had no order, usually they were not very productive. But the most productive shops were not the clean, immaculate shops either. The clean, I would argue that the clean, immaculate shops were actually not real efficient, because the goal of the shop was to keep it clean. It was not to increase productivity. Now, so usually the shops that were dirty and somewhat messy, those were the shops that were the best, because the best when I compare those three. Those were the shops that were the best when I compare all three of those, either the no order at all, or complete order, or the little bit of order but definitely still messy. The little bit of order but definitely still messy shops were usually the most productive. And the reason why is because they prioritized productivity over anything else, okay? And sometimes you have to do that. Now, the best system I ever had was I worked at this one shop for a little while where throughout the week it was just understood that productivity was the top priority. But every Friday, and this was a 9-to-5 fab shop job. Most of my jobs were not like that, but it was a 9-to-5 fab shop job, and we worked 5 days a week there, you know. And I worked there for a couple weeks. But their priority was that every Friday at noon, they knew they were going to get off at 3. Well, no, at 5, I'm sorry. They knew they were going to get off at 5. Every Friday at noon, they would prioritize cleaning up. Now, if there wasn't a lot to do, anybody that didn't have a lot to clean up in their area, they would go and they would continue to work. So it's not like they shut down productivity altogether, because you get a bunch of guys cleaning up a shop, a lot of times you can clean that thing all the way up before 5 hours. So really it was more or less, it kind of seemed like it went from 12 to 2, people would just kind of start prioritizing cleaning, kind of cleaning and straightening up. But then from about 3 to 5, it got real serious, where everybody was seriously cleaning up, putting up, and organizing and understanding where stuff goes. So that was actually probably the most productive shop, the best system that I had ever seen. Everybody cared about the cleanliness of it enough that throughout the week they would kind of keep that up. But at the same time, it was not so prioritized that it messed up productivity. So can you be productive in a shop that is messy? The answer is definitely yes, and in many cases, almost necessary. My wife has even commented, how in the world do you work in a messy shop? Because she's seen me work when stuff is a mess, and she's seen me work when stuff is really, really clean, you know. And like I said earlier, I used to be very, very OCD about it. Now, I'm not so much. Now I can see my shop as sections, as spaces. I don't have to see the entire shop clean. Instead, I just need my area that I'm currently working in. Like if I came over here to work on this four-wheeler, I would clean up around the four-wheeler and work on the four-wheeler. This pile of boards here is here because I'm about to build a shelf here. I got to have time to do that. We got the boards, we stored them there, and that's, you know, we just put them there because they may as well be right where I will need to build them. If I was going to work on this tractor, then I would work on the tractor right here, and I would just make sure that the area around there was cleaned up. I'd probably sweep it up and clean it up pretty good bit, you know. Right here where the trailer is, that trailer's perfectly fine. You know, I get ready to check that tire. I'm probably about to do that here in just a minute, actually, now that I got a little time. Got most of my seed spread before the first rain. We got a little rain coming today, and then hopefully I'll just have to go out and put out seed in between rain is what I'll have to do. But anyway, that, like I said, that's a story for a different day. So this is perfectly fine where it's at. It's not harming me, you know. So in other words, I'm not going to look at the whole shop and say, I can't work, I cannot do this because I'm in a tight area. Instead, I'm just going to look at this little spot around me, okay? If I'm working on the trailer, I work on the trailer, okay? If I'm working on the four-wheeler, I work in that area, in that bay, if you will, you know. That section is clean. So like these boards right here, these are all right here. They belong up there. That's where we've been storing them. We had a little, this is a long story, so I'm not going to go into the whole story, but long story short, we had to unload one trailer, and in order to unload that trailer, we had to use what was in the trailer. Well, what was in the trailer was insulation that went in that building over there. So we had to hurry up because we needed the trailer. So we had to hurry up and do a job where we did all of the inside sealing in there and then get all that insulation in order to get that done. Well, in order to get that done in a timely manner, we had to pull these boards down and build some temporary scaffolding. And we got all that done. And then, of course, I cannot get those boards up there by myself. It's not that they're too heavy, it's that they're longer than these two right here. So you usually need a second person to finagle them in, or at least to hand them to you. Usually if I'm standing on a ladder, I can do that by myself. Anyway, long story short, they're still sitting there because I need my wife to come over here and help me get those up in there in the order that we want to get them. So they sit right there. Are they in the way? Not really, a little bit, but not too bad. Do they look like clutter? Yes, they do, very much. Okay, what about this? Does this look like clutter? Yes, it does. Okay, we had it standing up. We had a big windstorm come in, blew the whole thing over, messed up the whole top lid, and everything's completely messed up. Normally, I keep my tools very organized. So currently, that looks like a mess, and I'm either going to try to fix that and make it work, or I'm going to go buy another toolbox. Okay, so I could get aggravated and slow down because it's not just right, or it's not just perfect, you know, like I normally like to keep my tools. Or I could just continue to work with it and realize that it is what it is and have some kind of order, even though it doesn't look like any order at all, until I can get the system how I want it. Sometimes the lack of order is not the problem. Sometimes it's the lack of order in your own head, okay? And that's a lot of times what the biggest deal is. So if you're working in a shop and it's a little bit cluttered and you're having trouble focusing, just try to focus in your head on the job at hand instead of, you know, and I'm saying this completely understanding. So, can you work in a shop that's cluttered? Yes, you can. You can work in a shop that is dirty. However, if eventually you do come up with a good system, a good places to put things, and you stay faithful at that, then eventually it can become quite a bit more productive. It's just you still will have some times like this when you're doing 15 different things at one time that it will get a little bit cluttered. So take it for what it is. I hope this video helped some people. If it did, definitely don't forget to like. If it didn't, still like, just because. So anyway, thanks guys.